Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to PTA Link's webinar, Cleaning House, PA PTA Finances. Before we get started, I have some announcements. We have interpreters here tonight in Mandarin and Spanish. Mandarin and Spanish speakers will be able to comment and ask questions in their languages, assisted by our interpreters. The interpreters will now take a few minutes to introduce themselves and explain how to access their services.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Antonia. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alma Jurado. I'm here with my co-interpreter, Chivita Espacial, and also our peers, Christine and Fran, who are going to be interpreting in Mandarin. Tonight, we have simultaneous interpretation, so I'm going to start with the directions in English. To access the interpretation features, I'm going to invite you to look at the bottom bar of Zoom. If you are in your computer, please look for a glove icon. If you don't see the globe icon, check where there are three little dots that say more. Click on them. Once you see it, please select English if that's the language of your preference, and that's all you need to do. If you happen to be connecting tonight from your smartphone or your tablet, you're going to look at the bottom right, the three little dots that say more. Once you click on them, you will see the globe icon. Select English, and at the top right, click on Done. That way you will remain on this channel for the rest of the meeting. If you have any issues, please put it on the chat because we want you to be able to listen in the language of your choice. Language justice is the ability to listen and to speak in the language that we feel the most comfortable in. So we want to make sure that you can do so. Also, we remind you, even if you speak English, remember this is a multilingual meeting, so you want to select interpretation. I'm going to repeat these directions in Spanish now. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias, Antonia, y buenas noches a todos, bienvenidos. Esta noche tenemos la justicia del lenguaje, lo cual significa que tenemos el derecho de hablar y escuchar en el idioma que nos sentimos más a gusto. Esta noche yo, Alma y mi compañera Chivita vamos a estar interpretando en español y nuestras compañeras Fran y Christine van a interpretar en mandarín también. Así que le voy a invitar a que si usted está conectándose de su computadora, en la barra de abajo de Zoom encuentre un globito terráqueo. Si no lo ve, busque por favor 3 puntitos que dicen más, hágales clic. Cuando vea el globito va a seleccionar español y es todo lo que tiene que hacer. Si está usted conectándose de su teléfono inteligente o de su tableta, en la parte de abajo a la derecha va a ver los 3 puntitos que dicen más. Una vez que haga clic ahí va a ver el mundito, seleccione español y en la parte de arriba póngale finalizar. Así va a estar usted en la reunión por el resto de la noche. Es muy importante que usted pueda escuchar, va a tener la oportunidad de hacer preguntas también y participar en español y ellos le van a escuchar en sus idiomas preferidos. Muchas gracias por asistir. Ahora lo paso a mis compañeras de mandarín. Gracias. Thank you, Fran and Christine. Please go ahead.
大家好，欢迎来到 PTA Link 整理房间 PTA 财务工作坊。我们将于几分钟后开始。然后开始之前，我们有几则翻译的公告。今天晚上我们会有普通话和西班牙语的翻译，因此在翻译员的协助下，各位讲普通话或西班牙语的参与者都可以在会议中用自己的语言问问题和提意见。我叫 Fran。然后我会和我的同事 Christine 一起进行普通话的翻译，然后 Chivita 和 Alma 会进行西班牙语的翻译。在开始会议之前，我们可以先看一下 Zoom 的翻译功能。如果你用的是电脑的话，你可以在荧幕底部点击地球仪并选择中文或者 Mandarin 收听普通话翻译。如果你用手机或平板电脑加入的话，可以找一下3个点，然后让它显示更多，选择语言翻译，选择中文 Mandarin， 最后点击右上角的完成。这样有人说英语或者西班牙语的时候，你就可以听到普通话。然后如果你在选翻译的时候遇到任何问题，可以在聊天框里面告诉我们，然后我们会尽力为您提供支援。谢谢。Okay, that's all the announcement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So welcome everybody to our third webinar of the season. Cleaning house, PA PTA finances. If you're doing financial cleanup, this is the webinar for you. I have to note that we at PTA Link are not tax experts, nor are we lawyers, but we have brought in some more knowledgeable guest speakers to provide some guidance. However, nothing shared today should be considered legal advice. The information is neither exhaustive nor all-inclusive, and all PTAs are different. Each requires an individual assessment of needs and capacities. It's advisable to consult legal counsel for assistance with some of these matters. Please say hello in the chat and add your school and district. We will be, and we currently are, recording this webinar. Participants can keep their cameras off if they prefer. Please keep yourself muted unless we call on you. Participants can raise their hand or use the chat to comment. There will be designated comment periods throughout, so we ask that you hold your questions for those Q&A periods. So hello, my name is Antonia Martinelli, and I am PTA Link's coordinator. I've been a parent leader in District 15 for a long time. I was briefly a PTA president, and for 8 years, I was on the Community Education Council for District 15. This website and platform, PTA Link, was actually created by another District 15 parent who saw the tremendous disparity between the knowledge amongst our various PTAs, and she sought to fill it by creating PTA Link. And I'm joined here by my director, Naya Berg.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see so many folks joining us this evening. As Antonia said, my name is Naya. I'm the executive director of New York Appleseed. You might be wondering, wait, I'm supposed to be a PTA Link. You are. PTA Link is a project of New York Appleseed. We acquired it as a platform in 2023, in the spring of 2023, because a lot of our work at New York Appleseed is about furthering equity and inclusivity in New York City public schools. And there is a key component to doing that, and that is making sure we support our parents and parent leadership and parent empowerment. And so PTA Link seemed like a perfect fit to give it a home at New York Appleseed. And that is why Antonia has been brought on board and done tremendous work at bringing these webinars to you. And tonight I will be in the chat helping answer questions, or at least directing folks where those questions might be answered. Thanks for coming again, and I'll pass it back to Antonia.
Thank you, Naya. And of course, we have our fabulous guest speakers. We have 3 of them tonight. The first is Rachel Baltodano. Rachel, you want to say hi?
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's so exciting to have such a nice group here tonight, and we look forward to helping you with your questions and get everything cleaned up for your finances.
Yeah, Rachel is the co-president of the District 25 Presidents Council. And we also have a guest speaker from Brooklyn Co-op Bank, Shardée Grey. Shardée, you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Shardée. I am a loan officer / business banker from Brooklyn Co-op Credit Union, and I'm here to answer some questions regarding opening a business account for PTAs.
Thank you so much. And we have Amy Hassler. She's been a parent in District 15 for a long time and has helped out a lot of PTAs.
Yes,
Amy?
I'm very happy to be here. Yes, I am a tax professional, but the reality is I, was a co-president. I was a treasurer. I was a vice president. I did various roles. I even did SLT for a few years. So the reality is I kind of always come out when I'm working with a PTA, I come from the point of view of I've been there. I just want to help. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much to all my guest speakers for being here tonight. So PTALink.org, this is our website. Please use it. Everything can be found on our website. It's free. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when your parent coordinator or your FLC is not awake or available. And I know a lot of our PTA parents do their work after hours. So please use our resources. And the topics we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about the front door of your PTA. Everything that comes in or goes out goes through your bank account. That is your PTA's door. We're going to also talk about some very optional additions to your house, incorporation and tax exemption. We're going to talk about maintenance of your PTA organizations through reporting and taxes. And we're going to talk about spring cleaning, audits, and transfer of records. And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Baltodano to talk about the next few slides.
Okay, so first the steps once you've established your PTA, once you have your bylaws and you have your board, step one would be to obtain your employer identification number. This is also referred to as an EIN, and that's how we'll be referring to it throughout the presentation. And you would get this from the Internal Revenue Service or the IRS, as we will refer to it as. You will need this number in order to open a PTA checking account so that you can do fundraising and perform the function of PTA in supporting your school. And then thirdly, you would want to speak with the principal to obtain a locked location so that you can store your PTA records. These would include things such as your financials, your membership information, anything that is confidential should be locked and only accessible to those who need to have that access. So your first question would be, how do I apply for an EIN number? So as we mentioned, you would need to get this from the IRS, and you would do this using Form SS4. It can be done either online, via mail, or by fax to communicate with the IRS. You also have a toll-free number there, 1-800-829-4933, that would help you with this process by speaking directly with someone from the IRS. They're not as scary as you may think. A lot of people think IRS and they're, they get afraid, but they're actually very helpful. It's best if you do have a copy of the form when you do call so that you know what you're going to be asking and what information you already have and what information you need to gather. And it must be done by an officer of the PTA. So that would be the president or co-presidents, treasurer, co-treasurer, or recording secretary, co-recording secretary. You could also have the option of a third-party designee that would be appointed by an officer. So it cannot be a general member, even as helpful as they may want to be. It does need to be one of the officers, the elected officers of the PTA. And these slides will be shared, and so there is a link here that you would be able to access when the slides are shared for more information. And it's also been placed in the chat so that you have easy access to more information about applying for an EIN number. So what do you do if you don't know your EIN? Well, as we mentioned, it comes from the IRS. And so if at any point your PTA has previously set up an EIN, you can get that information by contacting the IRS at 1-800-829-5500 or by going online to irs.gov. And you can use the website, has a wealth of information as well as the forms and publications that you can use to obtain an EIN if it's already been in place. And also forms can be ordered by calling that 800 number.
Thank you so much. So I want to just invite you, the audience members, to share your experience. Have you ever called the IRS? And what was that experience like? You can raise your hand or just put it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Any takers? Anybody want to talk about their experience calling the IRS?
I can go.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually before I was a tax professional. A school I worked with had missed the filing deadline. They were already a 501c3. They missed the filing deadline, and truthfully, I didn't know how to handle it. So I came on as an officer the next year, real life, they had missed it. And I called it, and the woman was so nice and basically told me exactly what I needed to write in a letter to the IRS to ask for abatement of the penalty that they had assessed. She couldn't have been more helpful. So it was a really great. It was, I will admit, it was the nonprofit line. So perhaps they were they were even particularly kind, knowing how many nonprofits have volunteers. But yeah, it was actually a really great experience, and it's always stuck with me. Like that now as a tax professional, I'm like, yeah, but you had that great experience. So.
Has anybody else tried to call the IRS?
I have. My name is Donna, and I'm the vice president for my school. And I called in September. I did see somebody write about long hold times. I had called immediately in the morning. It was one of my off days. So I got through right away, and I was able to be transferred to 3 different people and really take notes and get information because I was so confused. We had our EIN number, but we needed to transfer it because our president, who was there for a very long time, had her children had left, and they were so helpful. Like they dumbed everything down for me, and I was able to get the forms printed out and get it to the old president so that she can sign off, and we could remove her name and stuff. So really, the process was maybe about an hour and a half of a phone call, but they were so helpful. And if you tell them, I don't know what that means, they will literally take their time and go over it with you. And I was able to go to the website while on the phone with them and print everything out. And they, like I said, had patience. So it was awesome.
That's amazing. That's really great.
Yeah. So I definitely suggest calling in the morning. I mean, I know that's not conducive for some people with work schedules, but that was the best time, I think, like just as they opened.
That's a great advice. Anybody else? All right, we can move on to our next slide. Oh, did I go backwards? I went backwards. All right, we've got our next guest speaker, Shardée Grey, a loan officer from Brooklyn Co-op Federal Credit Union. Take it away, Shardée.
Thank you, Antonia. Hi, everyone. My name is Shardée. I am a loan officer / business banker at Brooklyn Co-op Credit Union. I'm just going to go over some of the documents that are needed to open a PTA account at the credit union. Some of the things that I will discuss may differ from bank to bank, but I believe the average bank or credit union would ask for similar documents. So some of the things that we would need are photo ID, which could either be a driver's license, a passport, NYC ID, just something that has your picture as well as your name, preferably something that has your address, but if not, we'll take a bill that has your current address and your name on it. We would also need your EIN number, which you get from the IRS, as we previously discussed. We would need the SS4 letter, We can't just take you saying, for example, this is my EIN number. We would actually need the document that you received from the IRS. We would need a letter from your principal, which would be the resolution letter stating who's able to open the account and transact on the account. And we would also need minutes from your PA PTA meeting if you have. We don't always ask for the minutes, but if you do have it, we'll gladly take it. In terms of opening the account, we do have a few forms that we require people to complete. Pretty much those would be the membership form, which goes over some of the information of the PTA. So the PTA name, the address, the signers, authorized signers on the account. We would also need a corporate resolution letter that will state who's able to make business decisions for the PTA. We would also need for there to be a questionnaire that would go over the type of services your PTA offers, what your relationship or connection is to our credit union, and which schools you're associated with. We would need for the signers on the account, we do need the photo ID along with social security card. We do ask for the physical, but if you don't have the physical, you could tell us your social, and as long as we could verify it in our system, then we can move forward with account opening. If we're not able to verify your social, we do need you to bring in the physical card. We would also need proof of address, so that could be a bill with your current address on it. And lastly, $55 to open an account. We would need all signers on the account to come in together at the same time in order to open the account. So if there's going to be 2 signers on the account, both people need to come in together and open the account. If they need to change anything later on, then any of the signers could come in by themselves and make the necessary changes.
Okay.
All right. If your PTA is new and has not yet raised any money, are you able to open a bank account? The answer is yes. With Brooklyn Co-op Credit Union, you do not have to raise any funds in order to open a bank account with us. As I just mentioned, you would just have to complete some forms, provide your EIN letter, pay the membership fee of $55, and have the authorized signers come in to open the account. We do offer 2 types of accounts. We have a savings account that does not have any minimum balance requirement. We also have a checking account that does have a $5,000 minimum balance requirement. Depending on the needs of the PTA, you may not need a checking account. Some people are perfectly fine with just the savings. And again, there's no minimum balance requirement. But please note, with the savings account, there is no debit card and there are no checks. So if you do need a checkbook, or if you need a debit card, you would have to get the checking account, which does have the $5,000 minimum balance requirement. If you do not maintain the $5,000 in the checking account, there is a $20 maintenance fee that's charged on the last day of the month. But there are ways to waive that $20 monthly fee. So for example, if you deposit at least $250 into your account every month, whether that's an ACH or a transfer or a direct deposit, or if you get a high yield savings account with us and you maintain at least $1,500 in the high yield, as long as you have 2 additional products with us, we will waive the $20 maintenance fee if you do not maintain $5,000 in the checking account.
Okay. I'm going to open up the floor to questions for Shardée. Just raise your hand, or you could put them in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead, Deanie.
Yes, hi Shardée. I am PTA treasurer for PS6, and I've been hitting some roadblocks as far as trying to get an account opened. I was talking to some major banks, and they were telling me, yes, I needed my EIN, which I obtained, but they were also telling me that I had to register the business with the state. Is that something that, or is that what the SS4 letter is? Is that what your bank requires as well, or is that different?
The SS4 letter is just the EIN letter. So that's what you get from the IRS. So you don't
Okay.
necessarily, for us, you do not necessarily need to register with the state. If you are registered with the state, even better. But it's not mandatory for our credit union.
Okay. So if I mean I could then I feel like I could probably do everything. I could probably open an account if I go to your bank. So uh my we haven't raised any money and we don't have any money as of right now because we didn't have anything to start. So this $5,000 balance for the checking account, if we don't maintain that, and you were saying we could do a savings account, is that allowed when you do the PTA? Are you allowed to just have a savings, or does it have to be a business checking?
You could get the savings only if that's all that you need. Not a problem.
And if I needed to take
So,
money out, I would physically have to come withdraw the money?
Correct. So you would come in person to one of our 3 branches and you could withdraw at the teller station, or you could get a money order or a check. There are fees with the money order. I believe it's $2 for a money order and $7.50 for a check. But yes, those are other options as well.
Okay.
so there are, I just need to throw this in there. The chancellor's regs mandate that PTAs have a checking account. So, I mean, I don't think there's nothing wrong with the PTA also having a savings account. But I think ultimately they need to do all of their spending through that checking account. So um, I probably need to clarify some of this with Face, but I think you could have a savings account, but you wouldn't be able to actually pay vendors out of it, I think.
Well,
But I think
not
that,
sorry.
no,
I'm not sure in terms of the rules. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
with our credit union, if you only have a savings account, you can still do ACH. You could use PayPal. You could use Venmo, as well as PayPal and Cash App.
Yeah, see, there's a whole slew of regulations that New York City PTAs have to adhere to.
Okay.
And they're not even allowed to make payments through Cash Apps at all. They can accept money through Cash Apps, but they can't actually like pay vendors through Cash Apps. The DOE has it set up so that they really have to use their single checking account. That is like the front door. But I believe they could probably start out with a savings account and then transfer to open a checking account. They just wouldn't really be able to pay for anything out of that savings account. But I don't know if my other guest speakers have anything to say about that. Rachel, do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, the one thought when she was mentioning the options of using with savings is according to when I attended CPAC meeting, there were questions, and Venmo is not an approved, not even for receiving. Venmo, Cash App, it's really only Zelle or PayPal that are, because the money needs to go directly into the PAPTA account. So it can't be done through Cash App, Venmo, any of those types of apps aren't allowed through the chancellor's regs based on my understanding from CPAC meetings.
Yeah. But are you familiar with PTAs having both a savings and a checking?
I've never come across a savings account, a PTA having a savings account. I've never experienced that in any of my years in parent leadership.
Actually, I work with several schools who have both a checking and a savings account, but the reason for that is that the savings account offers them a bit of protection against fraud, which the chancellor's regs would definitely say is a good thing. So basically, because your checking account number goes out all the time, it's great to basically keep your checking account low. And if you have any extra, you're shunting it to a savings account where nobody basically has access to that number. So that's why.
Yeah.
I would think PayPal would work because you can make payments from PayPal. And they still have to set it up with like an officer's like social security number and things. I would think PayPal would be okay in that.
I don't believe it is. I don't believe it is.
Huh.
They don't, the DOE doesn't allow any outgoing payments from Cash Apps. You can accept money. You take in money.
That's
no going out.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, and mine too. There's like an amendment to the regs that very specifically says no Cash Apps paying out.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think a good strategy could be to open a savings account until you have enough money to have the checking account and just save and not pay. You're not paying out, you know?
If I may, because I'm also checking Timekeep.
Okay. Yes,
Jeannie, I
we're
think you
pretty
gave us a good question. That I will just say that if you send me your information, it seems like Antonio is also going to follow up with Face on making sure we have like the exact right guidance to give you. And we're also going to briefly go over incorporation just a little bit later, just in case that might be interest of you, because you're running into that roadblock of registering with the state, which is not necessary as far as we know, but it is a relatively easy process. So just to give you a heads up on that too.
Yeah. And I just want to go to Carolina before we move on to the next slide. Maybe she didn't have. Carolina, did you have a question? No?
¿Aló? ¿O sí? ¿Me escuchan? Hola.
Yes.
Hola. Ok. Yo también tuve el inconveniente al abrir la cuenta bancaria por el problema con el lane number. ¿Qué pasa? El lane number que tenía la PTA es muy viejo, del 2018. ¿Me escuchan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I could hear you.
En los bancos, si tú no tienes actualizado con tu nombre como nuevo presidente, si el presidente anterior no hizo la transferencia, es una barrera, no vamos a poder hacer nada. Te piden el A-number, te piden actualizar los estatutos, te piden tu identificación y la carta de la escuela, donde te autoriza como presidente, el tesorero. Esto lo hice con el TD Bank, acá en Manhattan. Entonces, para poder hacer todo esto, primero tenemos que diferenciar si nuestra PTA va a solicitar la excepción ante el IRS o simplemente va a ser menor a más de $10,000, qué sé yo, que pueda recaudar esa PTA. Antes de que una persona haga este registro de la ciudad que a veces piden, si la van a hacer 501. Si no, el paso es más sencillo.
So there's a lot there's a lot going on there. I think that you do have to, when you change your officers, go to the bank and let them know with the letter from the principal and all the identifications that these are the new officers who are signatories on the a bank account. If you don't know what your EIN number is, I think that's where you call the IRS to try and clear up that. But the person who initially opened the EIN doesn't change. You don't have to, every time that the
No,
officers change over, I don't believe that you have to update
bueno,
that with the
bueno.
IRS.
Ok, entonces o los bancos no están informados, pero tanto en el Bank of America como en el TD Bank me estaban poniendo esa traba, porque el A-number que me mostró la PTA anterior está bajo el nombre de una persona que estuvo en el 2018 y me están pidiendo que cambie ese nombre actualmente en el A-number con el IRS,
Okay,
pero esa persona no sé quién es.
so
Shardée, have you ever encountered that?
Not with the PTA. I'm thinking maybe it's something to do with the EIN. Like maybe the EIN says one thing and then the articles of organization may say something else. That's typically what I see. But
No,
I don't think
Amy,
it's accurate.
no.
go
Es
ahead.
con el nombre que le han puesto al A-number. O sea, el A-number que vi de la escuela,
Because there's not
del PE 192, dice PTA, PE 192, y debajo dice, no soy yo, es alguien que abrió en un principio. Ok, tú tienes que cambiar ahora a que eres tú la nueva persona. Cuando yo llamé al IRS, me dijeron que yo tenía que llenar un formato y hacer el cambio de la vieja a mi persona ahora, pero esa persona no aparece.
Amy, you wanted to say something?
So the EIN was
Mm,
obtained in 2018. What year did you go to open the bank account?
sí.
So,
Esa cuenta de banco la han cerrado y abierto varias veces. Y en esta última oportunidad del 2025, no me la querían volver a abrir por el nombre ese que está en el A-number.
okay, I think that's where the problem is. So the SS4 letter that you received when the EIN was, you obtained the EIN, probably said PI, I'm sorry, I can't remember what number you said, but it said the number and then it probably said care of whoever the officer who opened it. In essence, that officer was creating ownership since they didn't open the bank account right away when that officer got the EIN. Now that's where the disconnect is because it looks like 7 years later that person is no longer associated. If they had opened the bank account with that
Exacto.
officer. But yes, you don't want to obtain your EIN and then basically not use it for 7 years. So that is one thing. If you're not complete, like you should plan when you obtain your EIN, you do want to intend to use it fairly quickly to open your bank account. Because yes, they're going to confirm whoever created the business, the EIN, the entity, they're going to want to confirm that that person is still associated with it. Otherwise, they could be accused of fraud. That's
So
where
they should go to, so Carolina should go to
Mm.
the IRS and update them and get a new EIN.
No,
well, you could get a new
no se
EIN
puede ir
or
en
you
persona
could,
porque yo fui.
yes, you could possibly file a change of, it's not exactly ownership, but yes, you could probably file a change of ownership form, which is I think Form 8832, I think.
Pero no está el problema, no voy a poder hacer nada ya con ese nuevo, o sea, tendría, según la última información que me dieron, tendría
I
que yo
get
sacar
that.
uno nuevo, porque esa persona no aparece. Ella nunca hizo el traspaso.
Right, but you also likely will not be allowed to get a new EIN with the exact same name of your organization. So I think you, in essence, have to file a form showing change of ownership, and that type of form usually, unfortunately, has to be mailed. And it has to have a hard signature. So,
Okay.
so
All right,
it's
interesting.
it's doable, but yes, I would say that, when you get your EIN, you do want to think about shortly thereafter opening your bank account, if that is the ultimate, intention to move forward and potentially, become a nonprofit, whatever you decide. So,
Okay, so we're gonna move on for
Okay.
time. So these are some optional additions to your PTA. You do not have to do these things, but you can, and there are certain benefits to doing them. You can incorporate. An incorporation means you file as an Inc. With the state, and it provides some useful liability protection for your PA, PTAs, directors, officers, and volunteers. They will not be personally liable for the debts or the actions of the PTA. And you can find more information on incorporation at ptalink.org. My director is going to put some links in the chat. You can also file with the state for state sales tax exemption. This will enable your PA PTA to purchase items without having to pay sales tax. And that form is going to be linked in the chat. It's Form ST-119-2-1. And of course, everybody is always asking about 501c3. And the reason is any income that your PTA receives is going to be federally taxable unless you file for federal tax exempt status, which is known as a 501c3 organization. If you are a PTA that is looking to apply for grants through foundations, they will often condition it on you being a 501c3. If you have donors and they want to deduct that donation from their taxes, you will need to be a 501c3 in order to give them that letter saying that their contribution was tax deductible. Again, these are not things that you have to do, but there are benefits to doing them. And you can go to our website to find more information about all of them. And now I'm going to turn it over to our tax specialist, Amy Hassler. Take it away, Amy.
all right. Hi. So, when do PTAs file their taxes? Well, this depends on your fiscal year. Most PTAs have their fiscal year set from July 1st through June 30th. But there are some schools that do it a little bit differently. I have also seen September 1st through August 31st. That's really decided by your board. So you could ultimately do that. As far as how does a 501c3, so a nonprofit PA, PTA file taxes, they're going to file variations of Form 990. The easiest one to file is income under 50,000. You literally file it on a postcard. It's got basically 4 pieces of information. It's very simple to do. PTAs that basically keep their, you know, track of their revenue and expenses via a spreadsheet often file on Form 990 PF. So for the postcard. Then there is the 990 EZ. That is for income raised between just over 50,000 to 250,000. The it is easier, but it is a bit more, no question. It does have a bit more labor intense. For instance, you do list the officers, not any personal information, but you list all the officers. You have requirements to list anyone who donates over $5,000 to your PA. And then finally, you have the straight up 990. And there are a fair number of schools in New York City who do that. It's for income over $250,000. And it is actually quite labor intensive. It's not unmanageable, but PTAs filing that particular form definitely are going usually to a tax professional to get it completed. As far as non-501c3 PAs and PTAs, the reality is you're not really filing taxes because you're not attached to anything. So it's just a straight up LLC. Think in terms if you're an individual taxpayer and you have a side hustle, you file that form on Schedule C, but it goes part of your personal return. Your LLC, a lot of side hustle businesses for individual taxpayers are indeed LLCs, but as an LLC like PA, you don't exactly have a way to attach that information to the government. There is no just straight LLC filing at the federal or the state level. But that doesn't mean you can't still manage. The difference is if you're not going to become a 501c3, you basically have to break even every year. If you take money in, you have to spend it by the end of the fiscal year that you've decided, whether that's June 30th or August 31st. You have to spend that money. So you always want to break even, so that way you wouldn't owe taxes. That would be the easiest way to do it. And truthfully, since you don't have nonprofit status, it's actually a wonderful way to hold yourself accountable to the parents who donate to the school, because they can't receive a tax deduction for donating to your PTA because you're not a nonprofit. But if you're spending everything that you take in, you've just exactly explained to those parents, okay, we really appreciate you donating even without the tax deduction. This is how your money was spent. So you basically want to break even. That said, if you need to maintain some money in a bank account, you can always maintain that amount and not spend it. Parents would understand that because they don't want you to accrue fees for not maintaining a balance in your bank account. Also, as some of our guests have said, it's really hard to get the bank accounts open. So once you get them open, you want to maintain it. So and honestly, that same thing applies to the state taxes. Break even. Don't keep more than you can reasonably spend. I mean, if by some chance a large donation came in at the very end of your fiscal year, at that point, I would go to the principal and say, what are your needs? How can we help cover so that again, it's supporting the school, because whether you become a nonprofit or you just, keep the PTA going and Your goal is to support the school ultimately and its students. So that is the best way to handle that. Because basically nobody can complain if you don't owe any taxes. They can't complain you didn't pay them. So, there is no, like I said, if you're breaking even, there is no, for a non-501c3, there is no limit. You just really, the best advice is to break even. And then, of course, I explained for a nonprofit, there are varying levels of the documents they file. But I mean, a postcard, for instance, a postcard 990 takes on average 20 minutes. So most people can honestly, for most schools, their treasurer, if they're at that level, the treasurer often files the postcard. They're very, very inexpensive. There's a software called Tax Bandits that will let you file it for $17.90. So they're that easy to work with. And it takes 20 minutes. So there are lots of softwares out there that will help you file your 990s. So, well, okay. I actually have I've dealt with the school that realized they had missed the last 2 years of tax returns, filing them. That was hard, but I can tell you what we did was, one, I worked really hard to get their books up to date. I got them caught up. The returns they had not filed were 22 and 23. I worked to get them caught up to date. We got them filed. We also got 2024 filed timely. And then unfortunately, there was no way to ask for an abatement of all penalties. The IRS looks at things by year, and those years are siloed. So because 22 was the return that they owed the most money for because it was the latest and it had accrued the most penalties for late filing, we asked for abatement from the IRS of those penalties for tax year 22. And that really just required putting together a letter saying, these are the steps we've taken so this never happens again. And we literally went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until we had covered everything. And then they paid the penalty for 2023. So it's not insurmountable. You can get it done. The only thing you really need to know if you're a nonprofit, if you fail to file a return for 3 years in a row, the IRS can revoke your nonprofit status. So that's one thing to know about going nonprofit that you should keep in your mind. Historical knowledge is incredibly important, and you want to make sure you have good transitions in place. So, okay.
Should I go on to the next
Yeah,
slide?
I think we can. That internal, this one's here. There is a benefit to conducting the internal audit. I would, chancellor's regs don't require them, but I would reach out to your parent body. You might find somebody who's not an officer. I do actually think that's somewhat important, but somebody who maybe has a finance background or an accounting background. I do
Amy,
actually,
I'm
yes.
so sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure there might have been a situation on our interpretation lines. The Spanish, there was trouble hearing. And so before you continue, I just want to make sure that that is
Perfect.
fixed.
Are we just pausing?
Just a pause for a second.
Okay.
Shavita, was that a thumbs up that it's fixed or? Okay, no worries.
No problem.
Okay.
So I'll just
Continue
go
on.
back to that first. Yes, it is not required to do an internal audit, but I do think it's valuable. And this is one of those things that it would be worth it to reach out to your parent body and ask if somebody has a finance background or an accounting background and would just look over everything. It's just a good practice. It's also, who knows, maybe you end up getting somebody else who becomes an officer the next year because they helped you out and maybe they'll want to be treasurer. I found often as an officer, that was how we looped them in with one little thing. And then before we knew it, we convinced them to move on to be an officer the next year. So it can be worth it. Yes, the audit committee must be selected by a general membership. So it would be best to do that at a PTA meeting. I think the chancellor regs still require a certain number have to be in person, correct? Or did they consider Zoom in person now?
I think you can have Zoom PTA meetings, but somebody has to be on school property to open them up. It's a little
That's
complicated.
what I thought. I remembered it was a little convoluted.
Yeah.
So, and again, everybody's doing their best, but it is a good best practice to have somebody else look at the finances. The next
All
slide.
right. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Hiring a professional, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a true tax professional. That could be a bookkeeper, potentially as well. Just to be looking from the outside. The other thing that this person really can help with is historical knowledge. Ultimately, I have schools, I've been doing bookkeeping and tax returns for them for a long time, and the reality is they'll say, "Oh, what is this category? Why did we create this? What was it?" in their books? And I'll be like, "Oh, I know what that was for." I can also help remind them of deadlines, which is crucial. Even it's things like filing the interim report, which was due January 31st, just in case anyone didn't get to it. I do believe you have to get it in by February 10th, for sure. So your interim report, the end of the year report is usually due around July 7th. Although if you can get it to your parent coordinator, who in most cases is the filer for the city for that particular piece, they love getting it right on June 30th. So, yes, they can just help you. Not only are they going to make sure that you don't miss any tax deadlines, they're also going to help you with some of those basic things that you need for just to keep the school, like your PTAs, running smoothly and do what you need to do for the school. So, again, absolutely present an audit report to the membership at a general meeting, and it is worth including in the June transfer of records. And then, yes, maintaining your contacts. I often think that the best way to do it is like have generic emails, like treasurer at, K497 or something like that. I think that having a generic email where basically you just change the password every year. But the nice thing is that will allow you to keep that history. That'll allow you to do searches when you're like, oh, I'm not sure if we did that. Keeping that type of history is so valuable. The other thing is it allows you, like if you're using like Google and Gmail, you also have a shared calendar. So you can have reminders pop up on when things are due and that you need to get done. A lot of schools I work with often put, on their calendar when they want to deliver, like the monthly reports for their finances. So, it's just things like that. That knowledge carries forward. So I would highly recommend that type of system. And, you can also go old school, which, I'm not opposed to. You can have the big notebook. and that just talks about all these things. Just like, I'm sure some of you do for events, trying to pass that knowledge on. You can always have a big, huge notebook that just lives at the school somewhere. So, next slide.
All right.
So finding the right accountant. I think it boils down to who you're comfortable with. But I would say when you're looking for an accountant or a bookkeeper, no matter what, you're not trying to make a profit. I mean, ultimately, whether you're not, even if you're not a 501c3, you're still looking for the money to go to school. So I would say that I would be conscious of price. Don't let someone, like gouge you. You should definitely shop around for that. A lot of the large accounting firms do have nonprofit like departments, but the reality is they are just that. They're expensive. Reach out to your school team. Like you probably don't know every parent. You don't know that there might be a parent who is not a board member, but it's like, oh, I'm an accountant. I can do the return. Great. You know what? They can consider that like their time, the donation to the school. Like that is never always look to that, I guess would be my best advice. Don't hesitate to look to your parent community first. I agree the President's Council can be a resource. I found it to be very helpful when I was a PTA president, CPAC as well. And again, a lot of you if you've had if you've had a parent coordinator at your school who's been there for a long time, they might have a lot more knowledge than you realize about some of these things too. So, definitely I think your school community is the first place to look. And if you can't find anyone in your school community, they probably know somebody in the school community is like, oh, but you know what? You could reach out to this person. Yes, just don't be afraid to ask questions. So, next slide.
Okay. And we were going to invite Rachel into this conversation as well.
Yes. Okay, so Antonia had she said something as we were kind of doing a run through on this about like what things PTAs face, and Rachel and I both were like, actually, the thing we seem to be dealing with a lot is fraud and data security. It is it is a big pain. It's particularly a big pain if you actually are a nonprofit. I'll admit it's harder because then you definitely have to go to the police and file a police report. Because you have to have a record as a nonprofit. You have to keep a record that you submitted it to the appropriate authorities. They may not really do anything for you because fraud is hard to fight, but there are some actions you should take. One, as I mentioned before, a lot of schools do open a savings account completely just so they can keep the balance in the checking account low. Just for the money to sit there and hold there and, because that savings account number never goes out. If you are doing checks, I would highly recommend that you require 2 signatures on a check, 2 officers. I know it is a pain sometimes to get officers together. I remember how difficult that was for schools during pandemic. That said, it's really important. And then another silly little thing, but if you are handwriting checks, if you're not using bookkeeping software and printing them through that, or going to the bank and getting a check, if you are handwriting them, use blue gel ink pens. And the reason being is gel ink sinks into the paper. And it makes it much harder to wash your check, which has unfortunately happened to schools that I have worked with. So I know that seems like the silliest thing, but truthfully, I have literally handed PTA officers blue ink gel pens because I'm like, okay, I know you're handwriting checks. You have to use these pens only. Just because the reality is, as their bookkeeper, it's a pain in the neck for me to have to help them deal with fraud too. It often means closing a bank account and redoing transactions and making sure that checks get reissued and different things. So yes, it as a bookkeeper, it's actually a pain in the neck for me too. Rachel, what other thoughts? We kind of had a lot to say about this issue.
Yeah, Rachel, you had a story.
Yes, I had a story. Well, recently, within the last month, I got a phone call from a number. Then it was verified that it was Chase. I Googled the number, called the number back. It was a Chase branch. These people are very astute at how they go around tricking you. And the claim was that my phone number linked to the account had been cloned and used to initiate Zelle payments that were flagged as fraud to an individual, and that I needed to verify my phone number in order for them to identify the correct number and not pay out these transactions. And they went so far as to send me a meeting invitation that was from looked like a Chase verified. It had the check next to the Chase name, to discuss this. They gave me a claim number. They gave me all kinds of information that made it sound really legit, until I said, I'm going to talk to my my local branch representative. And they said, don't do that, because that will then stop all transactions on your account. And then that to me was the red flag that maybe something's not quite right here. And they wanted me to verify my account by sending money through Western Union. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. It's not allowed. And so I hung up, and I got a phone call back, which I didn't answer. And they had claimed in the initial call that if it wasn't resolved within 72 hours, that the funds would be released. And so I just kept checking my account religiously for the next 72 hours, hoping that that I was correct in assuming that this was fraud and that these payments did not go out. And fortunately, they did not, because it was fraud. And it was such an eye-opening encounter, because I would never have thought that something like that. I mean, and they made it sound so legitimate, using a Chase, and even I was uncomfortable with the phone call, and they said, well, we're sending you this information from a verified number. And, so fraud is out there. They're going to come after you personally. They're going to come after your PTA account. If by chance your membership approves use of a debit card, then you're more likely to encounter fraudulent charges, which hopefully your bank will easily return. And it's very important that you have your account settings for your checking account set up to notify you whether it's transactions over a certain dollar amount or international transactions, because obviously we're not doing international business as our PA PTAs. So that, changing passwords regularly for keeping data security, all these things are real in the life of not just us individually, but in the realm of the PA PTA.
Thank you. Very important information. I'm going to open it up to questions to on these topics. Anybody interested
Antonia,
in? Yeah.
there's one in the chat,
In the chat.
and that said if there's any kind of guide for audits that they've been having a difficult time sort of getting started. Didn't know if any parents had any accounting backgrounds, whether in that are here now, or I don't know if Amy or other folks have thoughts on that.
That is a good question. Yeah, I would think you would want them to have. You know what? I think if because your general membership is, approving who the audit members, I think as long as they were conscientious, that is probably enough. If they don't have an accounting finance background, although that would be nice, and maybe, if you choose like 3 people as your audit committee, if one of them has that background, that would be great. But I mean, ultimately, you really just want someone who is willing to look at every line of, whether you're maintaining your books via spreadsheet or if it's bookkeeping, just willing to look at your reports and be like, okay, I don't understand. What was this? Um, there, in most cases, there's not going to be anything wrong with it. They didn't know what it was for. So they want to check. I mean, I think if you, believe it or not, I actually think people who are journalists are great at this sort of thing because they tend to like to do the research. So, for instance, um, in the bank feed, you'll see notes come through. Well, sometimes for my clients, I'm looking at the bookkeeping. I have no idea what that is. So then I'll just like start to Google parts of the note in the bank feed, and I'm like, oh, like truthfully, it took me a while. Some schools use Operu as an application, I guess to keep like their donations and everything. It took me forever to figure out what Operu was. But once I was like, oh, now I get it, I knew exactly where to categorize it. So I think, truthfully, as long as you have someone who's conscientious, I don't think they have to have a huge background, but you would want them to be willing to look at your categories, make sure if there were any expenditures over 500 that you know, they saw the receipt in essence of why you spent that money, different things. So no, I don't think they have to have a finance background, but I do think they have to kind of be curious. They have to like research. I think that's valuable.
Yeah, I'll see if I can dig up a how to on audits that's digestible for non-professionals. I mean, do you have a first step, Amy? Like, what's your first step?
My first step would be I'd love if I were going to audit someone, all I'd want to see is I'd want a spreadsheet by month with, and actually I'd want it to have 2 pages. I'd want it to have income on one page by month, and I'd want expenses on the second page by month. That's it. Because that way I would be looking at them by month and kind of looking and being like, okay, like if I saw a huge like expense in one particular month, that would immediately be like, okay, why did the expenses go up so much in this month? That's where I would that's where I would start. And I think most PAs, PTAs can manage doing that in this spreadsheet, whether it's in theory, they are supposed to actually present the budget to the parent body anyway. So that seems pretty reasonable, not too onerous on the treasurer, because I will admit, I often feel like the treasurer, their role is maybe the most labor intensive. So, you know, that would be something I'd be conscious of too. I wouldn't need it to be fancy. So.
Are there any other questions out there? Anybody want to raise their hand? All right, we'll move on. And I think Rachel is going to take these slides.
Okay, so we've been talking about some of these things already. Basically, what Amy was talking about would be a treasurer's report. It must be prepared for every executive board and general membership meeting and should be reviewed and approved by the meeting during the meeting as well. And again, this would list all of the income for the time period, all of the expenses, and basically your treasurer's report would be the detail that doesn't come with the bank statement, but it would mirror the bank statement as far as the income, the outgoing funds. And if I believe there are on PTAlink.org, there are templates that you can use. Correct me if I'm wrong, Antonia, to create a treasurer's report. Next, regarding fundraising, for each fundraiser that you have, there should be a fundraising activity report prepared, which shows the amount brought in, the amount expense for each fundraising activity, and then the net profit.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. The net profit for that fundraiser. And this information will be helpful when it comes time to prepare the next items, the interim and annual financial reports. As Amy mentioned, the interim report was due by January 31st. It needs to be submitted to the principal, most usually via your parent coordinator, who needs to update this information in SPLCI, which is what the district office is looking for to make sure that these things are handled in a timely manner. And then at the end of the school year, by June 30th, you would have your annual financial report. And both of these reports list the starting balance as of July 1st of the year, list all income, all expenses, details, and then the end balance as of January 31st and as of June 30th. So these reports are very important to file in a timely manner and have on hand to transfer to the next, excuse me, to transfer to the next board. The question in the chat about who the parent coordinator submits it, they submit it to the district office through SPLCI. It's a data transmission where they submit all PA PTA information goes through the parent coordinator into this database and is then viewable by the district office. So the next item in bookkeeping would be in reference to your bylaws. It's very important that you have a copy of your bylaws, and a lot of questions that you may have as far as, can we have co-presidents? Are there term limits? Are there, is there a recommended amount for membership? Are all provided in your bylaws. Bylaws should be reviewed every year, but they need to be updated and reviewed with the membership every 3 years, even if no changes are made. And so it's very important that you keep your bylaws up to date. And again, these must be submitted to the principal's office. And it's also a good idea to have the parent coordinator, submit them to the district office. So if there in the future was ever any audits, they can help provide an extra layer of continuity in maintaining these records. Some suggested best practices, the bank statements, that the executive board should review the bank statement for the bank account every month. And this is something that can be done in addition to the monthly treasurer's report that is presented at each membership meeting. and also to separate the duties. The person who completes the reconciliation, which is comparing the checkbook or ledger entries for the month against the bank statement, should not be the same person who records items in the checkbook or ledger. So that way there is a separation between who is doing the activity and who's checking the activity to make sure that there are no discrepancies or anything untoward. Excuse me. There was a question in the chat. I didn't see that.
We can hold it till the end.
Okay, sounds good. And then lastly, for the end of the year, the end of the school year, by June 30th, you should have a transfer of records meeting with the incoming board and the outgoing executive board and in the presence of the principal. So it's important to know that records of all financial transactions must be maintained for 6 years. After the 6 years, you would want to make sure that the information is shredded or disposed of in an appropriate manner, especially if there's any information that has parent contact, emails, addresses, phone numbers. During the transfer of records, you're going to provide the incoming board with things such as the checks, the records of redeposits, most important, the employee identification number. I think that should be employer identification number. The EIN, as we've been talking about. If you have a tax exempt certificate, that should be passed on. Proposed and approved budgets. That's another report that is due actually in June. By the June membership meeting is a proposed budget report for the coming school year. And in order to do the budget, you would need monthly treasurer reports. You would also want to review the interim financial reports, the annual financial reports, those fundraising activity reports we discussed, as well as all PA PTA meeting minutes related to financial transactions, whether transactions were approved. And so in order to set the budget for the coming school year, you need to know, how did you spend your money? Were there areas where you need to budget higher because you spent more than you anticipated? Are there areas that you can cut that maybe you don't need as much? And these are all things that you can identify if you have all of these records and can transfer them over to the new board so that they are empowered with the knowledge of what happened previously and what they can expect for the coming school year.
Wonderful, thank you. And we'll open the floor up to questions again. I know there was a question in the chat. Does the membership vote on changes to bylaws? Can this be done at any meeting, any time of the year? Do you want to take that, Rachel?
Sure. Any changes to the bylaws do require membership approval. It is a 2-meeting process in that you would present all the proposed changes to the membership in 1 meeting. They would be reviewed to have time for comments, and then they would not be approved until the following membership meeting when you would have a vote. And the vote could be either change by change. So for example, maybe some have issues with one change, but not the rest. Or if no one has any issues with the changes, you can vote for all of the changes at as one slate. But yes, it is important that any changes to the bylaws are approved by the membership, and that is reflected in your minutes appropriately to document that.
Thank you. Great answer. Does anybody else want to raise their hand and ask a question to any of our guest speakers?
I'm looking for the button to raise your hand. I can't find it.
Okay. Hi there.
Hi, Rachel and Antonia. I wanted to know, when you say the records, right? If one person is doing the spending and monitoring the records, it should be one person doing it and then the other person not doing it, if I'm making sense. Like if the president as me is doing the purchasing, the treasurer it should be checking everything. But then what happens when the treasurer is really not around to do it or is not showing the real enthusiastic or the effort, as I might say, to get things done and in order to have things on track, I do most of it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And
Am
unfortunately,
I in compliance?
in
or
the
no?
world of parent leadership, that can often be the case where somebody may have a seat on the board and may not be able to fulfill it to the level that one would hope. It doesn't necessarily have to be the treasurer. It could be the recording secretary, because the recording secretary is also an authorized signer on the checks.
Are they? Because we don't have that in our bylaws. I know it was mentioned before, and I kind of mentioned before that maybe we should change her title to financial secretary, because our secretary is not on the bank information. It's president, vice president, and treasurer.
The recording secretary, according to the chancellor's regs, should be an authorized signer.
You have blessed me right now. You don't understand what you've done to me right now. You are giving my ears. I'm excited. I appreciate that so much. But you can continue.
Because it does require two signatories. And so, for example, you cannot sign a check that you yourself is in your interest. So if I, as the president, have an expense, I can't sign that check. So you need to have two other individuals, which would be the treasurer or the recording secretary, to sign that check, because I cannot be one of those. And actually, the chancellor's regs does have that in the template for bylaws, that the recording secretary is one of the authorized signers. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Can have the vice
So I
president and the
think it's in the
secretary.
template, but I think the chancellor's regs say you just need 3 signatories, and it doesn't state which 3. You need 3 potential signatories. 2 of them have to sign every check, and then you have an alternate. But I don't think it specifies secretary.
Oh,
But
really?
I do
Okay.
think that the bylaws template it has secretary to encourage you to have the secretary be one of the signatories, because it makes sense. But I don't think that's what A660 says.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
So can you explain that clarification just in case? I want to make sure.
So it's a really good idea to have your secretary be one of the 3 signatories, and the DOE's bylaw template may have the secretary be one of them, but I don't believe that I think A660 enables you to have any of your officers be one of those 3 signatories.
Larger schools often have co-presidents and co-treasurers. So they'll have 4 signatories on the bank account, but it's the 2 presidents and the 2 treasurers. It is correct. It just has to be an officer. It does not have to be. But I agree, in schools that don't have the opportunity to have co-officers, absolutely make that secretary be a signatory.
Okay, I had another question for you, Amy, from before, because I couldn't find the raise hand. When you mentioned the monthly, so I have it. We have all our monthly expenses and the income as well, but I also have it broken down like per activity that we're doing, where what is being spent and what is being brought in. Am I doing it correctly?
You are doing it correctly. As a matter of fact, you're going even a little bit step further, which I personally like because, well, I mean, I wouldn't
Like
be
I said, I don't
taxes
have
if
a
I
real
didn't like
active
things to
treasurer
be
there.
just so. So you are doing it correctly, and you're actually making your life easier for that interim and the end of the year reports by doing it that way. Because the interim report really is a situation where, you're supposed to like your revenue page, you're supposed to list every event. Now, occasionally, if it's with a small event, you might combine a couple categories together, but the reality is you are supposed to separate it out by event or activity. So great job. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Claudia?
Good afternoon, good evening. My question, who can prepare the reconciliation comparison? Is it the treasurer or any person of the board, please? Thank you so much.
Anyone want to take that one?
In my
I think-
experience, it's been the treasurer. That's usually in the bylaws, one of their responsibilities is to provide an accounting. So I would suggest checking your bylaws to see what they say as far as the duties of the treasurer. And if that's listed in there as far as providing a reconciliation or a statement, a monthly statement for the banking.
Do we have anybody else? Oh, somebody just wrote in the chat. No, it's a thank you. All right, going once, going twice. Anybody else questions for a banker and a tax specialist and a President's Council co-president? All right. Well, I'm gonna move on to close things out, I guess. So I just want to encourage everybody to subscribe to PTA Link so that you can have all the information about our upcoming webinars. There's a QR code on the screen that takes you directly to the place that you can subscribe. Please visit our website, send me questions at info@ptalink.org. Where are we going to be next? We are going to be doing another webinar on March 26th on elections. Please send us your questions regarding elections to the email address on the screen. Of course, we are going to share these slides and this video with everybody who attended tonight. My colleague, Naya, is also going to put a link to a feedback form in the chat. We would really appreciate it if you gave us some feedback. It really helps us to ensure that these webinars and all of our programming are relevant to what you need. So I really want to thank Rachel Baltodano and Shardée Grey and Amy Hassler for being here tonight and answering all of these really sticky, detailed questions. You guys have so much knowledge, and I appreciate you all. And I want to thank my fearless interpretation team, as always, behind the scenes, and my director, Naya Berg. So please reach out to PTA Link, info@ptalink.org with all your questions, and invite us to come to your school. If you have any topic that you want us to present on, just give us a little advance notice and we'll make a custom bespoke presentation just for your PTA. We'd love to be there. And tomorrow morning, I will be on at 10 a.m. Doing office hours. So if you want to continue this conversation at 10 a.m. in the morning, I will be there, and I have lots of notes to try and follow up and find some more resources. for all of you out there, and I just thank you for tuning in tonight. Have a great evening. Good night, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Alexa, stop.
Let me stop the recording. Why
Thanks so
can't I
much,
stop? Oh,
Antonia.
there we go. Yeah. Stopping the recording.